Hello and welcome to a bit of safeguarding training. Rather than doing it face-to-face in person, hopefully this video, low-tech as it might be, will be a time-effective way of delivering some safeguarding training for you. And with COVID and things, we haven't been able to gather together. So actually this is part of the statutory working together to safeguard children training. Now, I'm Alex Balls, I'm the school safeguarding lead. If you want to know who the other safeguarding officers are, you can see them there up in front of me, but if not, there's also a notice board up in the common room with their faces on them, and their faces are also, and their contact details are also shown on the school's safeguarding policy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my screen around and see if we can get you sitting comfortably and watching. We'll just get this balance just up. There, as I said, very low tech, but hopefully better than you sitting in front of me for the time. So I'm just going to follow going through some slides so you can see this is the Surrey's working together to safeguard children. Now clearly the aim of this, many of you will have seen some of these slides before, but it's what do you do if you've got concerns, and also to be familiar with both the school's processes and Surrey's processes for safeguarding children. Hopefully you'll be aware of the relevant guidance to safeguard children, know what individuals need to do if they have a concern, understand a little bit more about what abuse is, and understand that we work with other agencies, know what to do if a child makes a disclosure to you, and understand how important it is sharing. And probably I'm racing through these slides, but of course you can push pause if you want to have a little bit of a deeper look at any of them. Pretty much these are the principles that we're going to try and go through at the moment. Children's welfare is paramount, that's clear, but we can go through it. We're going to challenge behaviours constructively, and we're going to work in partnership. So lots of principles there that we're going to work towards. Generally, the idea of safeguarding is the overall sort of umbrella term that covers things. It's like when we've all had to do our pre-employment checks and things. That's part of safeguarding. And child protection, you can see, is really just as the process undertaken to protect specific children who are suffering or who are likely to suffer significant harm. So that's really what the child protection bit is. And this training is based on a document, What to Do If You're Worried a Child is Being Abused. And essentially you can see, A, that we all need to be alert to the signs of abuse and neglect, and then be aware of what we're going to do about it. Now, safeguarding and child protection, it is not just my responsibility, it is every single member of staff's responsibility. We all have a duty, so we need to know what the systems are at Reeds, and you also need to know about, and you've all signed to say that you've read our safeguarding and child protection policy, that our staff code of conduct, you know what my role is, that we have whistleblowing processes, and also in the recent pandemic, you would have all seen our risk assessment and the different policies for COVID and how that might relate to safeguarding as well. Now remember, we have a culture here. It could happen here, and this is the culture. What if we can do, or what can we do to stop it happening here? A child, I'm sure you know, that is anyone who is under the age of 18. I'm going to gloss over some of these because many of you would have seen these similar slides before. Now the key legislation, the key documents you need to know, the most important one is keeping children safe in education. Last updated in September 2020, due for another update this September. We'll update you when we know exactly what the key changes are, but also working together to safeguard children. There's lots of other pieces of documentation there, but those are the two key ones highlighted in red. Key changes this year to keeping children safe in education. There's all sorts in about coronavirus, as suddenly we weren't seeing pupils on a day-to-day basis, and the increased risk that might put some children at. More responsibilities on the DSL and sharing information with children who are working with social workers. More advice on allegations against staff. Online learning, we'll come up on that in a minute. We're going to talk about child criminal exploitation and county lines and child sexual exploitation in a minute. Greater emphasis on mental welfare, and so on and so forth. So those are the key changes. We looked at those last September anyhow. Pretty much, absolutely, whatever we do with safeguarding is focused around the child. It's putting the child at the centre, listening to the child's voice. That is the most important thing. I've already said it is everyone who works at Reeds, everyone who works with children, to be able to identify concerns, share information and take action promptly. That's really the key message from this training. I'm just going to gloss over this. This is what is abuse and neglect. You can see there. So it's a form of maltreatment of a child. And more importantly, perhaps somebody may abuse or neglect a child by inflicting harm or failing to act to prevent harm. So just by knowing it's happening and not doing something, that is classed as abuse. And you can see there that children can be abused in all sorts of settings, in a family, out in the community, at a school or an institution, by a stranger. They can be abused online. They can be abused by their peers. And we'll touch on that again a little later. So who presents risks to children? You can see the range. These are the fairly standard ones, pictures that go up here. And the idea is that anyone can abuse children. Again, it could happen at Reeds, and if we can stop it happening here, that's our mantra. I put that up because you might now look at this picture here and you might think, well, what's unusual about this? Now, this image was shown in a court case of child sexual exploitation, and these were children checking into a hotel. You might think nothing too concerning about that, but actually neither the perpetrator here or the two children had got any suitcases or bags, large bags with them, so they clearly weren't staying in a hotel as you would expect. Also, the girls here had material possessions that had been given to them. This was picking up on clues like that and thinking that's not right, and information was shared. So it really just makes the point there of it is important to be alert and to share our concerns. Categories of abuse, I'm not going to go on to these because I'm sure you're all well aware that physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, sexual abuse and child sexual exploitation, and you can pause this, you can have a look at those, but these come out, issues about these in the Headmaster's Bulletin as safeguarding updates. Now, some to look at. The whole concept of child exploitation we'll maybe look at in a minute. We've got gangs and county lines, grooming, sexual exploitation, trafficking, radicalisation and extremism we're going to look at later. Peer-on-peer abuse is quite a topical issue at the moment. Children going missing from school, that's going to be in a safeguarding sort of bulletin. And perhaps online abuse, including the youth-produced sexual imagery. That is sexting for those of us in sort of, it gets referred to as sexting. What I would say, we've got some very, very clear procedures if there's a case of sexting that you suspect or you come across. And what I would say is really, really important is do not look at the images yourselves. Do not ask to see the images. Report that to myself or one of the safeguarding team, and we have a process to go through. So we'll really try and help you with that. Then some of these other traditional practices, honour-based abuse and entrapment, FGM, forced marriage, breast flattening. So there's all sorts of specific issues, and we keep raising these on a regular basis through safeguarding updates in the Heads Bulletin. The idea of contextual safeguarding is worth just touching base on. Contextual safeguarding means that just having an understanding of the communities that our pupils are living in and how that might influence. And that might have issues to do with some of our borders, for example, knowing where they live, or just looking at the big picture and all the things. We'll send more out about contextual safeguarding during the year. Child criminal exploitation and gangs. This we've done lots of this. This is really to do with gang cultures and ultimately sort of the idea you hear county lines. Now this is where drug dealers will recruit pupils, usually in large cities, so for us clearly London, and then they will be sent off out to local towns to go and sell drugs. Now we've got some terms here, cuckooing and things like that, and I thought this is quiz time, so let's go into a quick quiz. Let's see if you know what some of these terms are. So, a burner phone. What is a burner phone? I'm sure many of you know it's a disposable phone. Some pupils have many, or pupils could have many phones. What does clear skins mean? It means you have no criminal record. A trap house is a base for dealing. Cuckooing, you saw that term earlier. What does that mean? That is taking over a property and using it to sell drugs. Debt bondage, that is somebody owning or owing money. BIC, that's a gun or a child. Plugging, hiding drugs inside the body. Roadman is a drug courier. And shank is, I'm sure many of you may have heard of that one, a knife, a blade or stab. Bando is an abandoned property, sometimes used for illegal purposes. So just talking through some of those, why did I share that little quiz with you? Because if you just hear some of those words around, it might be enough to cause a bit of suspicion. If pupils are using some of those words, they've obviously heard them from somewhere, and it might be enough to just cause a little bit of suspicion. Child sexual exploitation here, CSE. Now this is basically where a child is exploited in some sort of sexual abuse in exchange for something. We've focused on this in the past, but in particular this little line. So initially, children are targeted. Now this is really they're very clever. The people involved in CSE are very clever at targeting vulnerable children. Then they'll form friendships with the children, develop that perhaps into a loving relationship, and then finally in comes the abusive relationship. So this process is worth understanding. This does happen in Surrey, so it's definitely worth us being aware of that. We've covered this in the past. Online safety. Clearly in the last year or so, this has taken up more of our time. And it's just all about all of these things, being aware of social networking, gaming websites, and the use here. And there's staff computers here, we've got the sexting there. So of particular note, in terms of online safety, you should know Gareth Hart has taken over as our e-safety coordinator. Many thanks, Gareth. You should also know that all pupils in the first and third form, and those that have iPads, they have completed an online certificated safety course before they get that. So that just takes them through good practice, and we then know that they know how to behave online. You should also know that the school's network is filtered and monitored by Smoothwall. That's not just the pupils, that's also staff use. So just please be aware of that, no matter whether it's on a school device, an iPad, on your mobile, if it's going through the school network, it's being monitored. So just do be aware of that. We've also just recently rolled out some monitoring software on Teams called Senso that we can capture screenshots of inappropriate use on Teams. And if you have any concerns about anything online, if you go and have a look at the school's safeguarding policy, it's Appendix 5, what to do if you've got an online concern. There's more information there. But in essence, talk to Gareth Hart, come and talk to myself, and we can address any issues to do with online safety. Peer-on-peer abuse. Now this clearly on the back of everyone's invited. This is clearly a hot topic at the moment. It is important, and I put out something in one of the safeguarding updates only a couple of weeks ago in the Heads Bulletin. This could be sexual violence or sexual harassment, and that can happen between two children of any age. And they exist on a continuum, they may overlap, and the important thing here, they are pretty complex to manage these cases. Now, if we do have a case or a suspected case of this, there are some very, very clear processes that have to be followed. And there's a document here, sexual violence, sexual harassment. We'll follow that. There's now a part 5 of the Keeping Children Safe in Education document, which basically mirrors this guidance. So whether we like it or not, there are very, very clear lines that we will have to follow. Now, sexual violence can include these sexual comments like sexual jokes, including rape, assault by penetration, sexual assault. Harassment or truanting could be physical behaviour, deliberately brushing against someone, displaying pictures or drawings of a sexual nature. And harassment can be online. It includes sharing of images or videos, inappropriate sexual comments on social media, coercion or threats. So clearly we need to be aware of this, and if you become aware of any suspicion or you think there might be an issue here, it is really important that you do come forward and share that information, and we will follow the process, we will guide you and support you as we go through the processes. Domestic abuse. Clearly this is an important issue, and I've mentioned this before in previous updates. What I would say of note, it definitely happens in Surrey, it definitely happens for some of our pupils, or it's an experience for some of our pupils. And I don't know whether you can have a look down here. There is a scheme, the police, called Operation Encompass, whereby we are notified by the police, usually before school starts, if there's been a domestic violence incident at a family home. So we should be ready to... Now, moving on to domestic abuse. Domestic abuse, certainly you can see it represents 1/4 of all violent crime. And does it happen in Surrey? Yes, it does happen in Surrey. Does it potentially happen for some of our pupils? Yes, they do experience this. So it really is important that we have an understanding that some of our pupils could be living in a home where domestic abuse takes place, and that is pretty harmful to children and can have a serious impact on their behaviour and their well-being, etc. Now, there is, just if you can see down at the bottom here, there's this thing called Operation Encompass. Now, this is a scheme whereby the police will contact the school, myself, within 24 hours, usually before school starts. So if there's been a domestic abuse incident at a household, we are notified ideally before the pupil arrives in school the following day. So we can be ready and prepared to support them as best we can. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I put in a thing into the Heads Bulletin about adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. Now, these are really, it is important, in particular, maybe with some of our foundationers, to understand that when they're younger, some of them have experienced some of these ACEs. Now, the toxic trio, you might be able to see down at the bottom here, of domestic abuse, parental mental health, and parental substance abuse, if all 3 of those things combine, or even if any of those are evident, those are going to be pretty harmful. But if all 3 of them are there, that is a recipe for that there's likely to be some of these adverse childhood experiences. And it is just worth us understanding that children who experience these when they're younger, that will shape their behaviour, that'll shape their future interactions, possibly even their health as they go into adulthood and up through growing up. Now, which children are more vulnerable? Now, you can see there's a whole list here, but for us particularly, Emily has done some training with you before about pupils with special educational needs might be more vulnerable. And that's one of the reasons why Emily's on the safeguarding team, because therefore she's got a really good oversight of these pupils with SEND. Maybe children who are perceived as being different, that's just worth reflecting on maybe. children who are already thought of as problems by professionals. Maybe again, we may know that some pupils joining the school may have been thought of like that. Children who are looked after, we can talk about that in a little bit later. Children in secure or perhaps residential settings, and young carers we're going to talk about. So making it a bit more Reeds-like. Some of the issues, some of our foundationers, they might be more vulnerable. Of course they might be. Our boarders, by the fact they're in a residential environment, they could be more vulnerable, but maybe to peer-on-peer abuse, for example. Some of our pupils maybe have both parents working very, very long hours. That might put them at an increased risk of maybe neglect. Young carers, some of our pupils may have to look after some of their parents or look after others, and that's worth us being aware. Scholars may have some really onerous demands placed on them, and so it's worth us just being aware and just thinking, is that harmful to them? Girls, clearly on the back of maybe the peer-on-peer abuse and harassment and things like that, they might be more vulnerable to abuse. We've also got children who are looked after. Now, at Reeds, we've currently got 3 pupils who are looked after children. So that means that the local authority, and in our case, all 3 of them by different local authorities, look after them, and they are living with someone else, either being fostered or with a supervision order or a care order. And so it is worth us knowing about that. So there's all sorts of processes and support in place for these children. And if you'd like to know any more about them, do come and speak to me. Speak to Ruth as well in the foundation office. And then I can steer you there. Tutor and housemaster is aware of who they are. But as I say, we do have 3, so it's worth you being aware of that. And especially with looked after children, but actually we work with all sorts of agencies for all sorts of our pupils at different times. So we're all pulling together to really support these young children. Now, here's a little activity. So what you might consider, what do you think might get in the way of you or others taking action to protect children? And if you have a think about that, you can maybe push pause, but here's some reasons. Perhaps you're worried. You might be worried. You might feel that you don't have enough knowledge to recognise that, or you haven't received enough training. Not after this video, I hope not. But you also might not be aware of the policies that we've got and the procedures that we've got, or you might think, oh, that's fine, and that cultural sort of the family setting, that's fine, or just not being aware of things. So there's all sorts of reasons there. Now I'm just going to show you a little video here from the NSPCC. And we're just going to have a watch of a little video here. Let's get that back to the start. And just to go and have a look, why might this girl not be able to share her concerns?
Who can tell me? Hands up. 9 times 8. Sally, do you know the answer? Shush.
Do you want to come by my house after school?
No.
Sally, you're not eating again. What's wrong?
I'm fine. Can I go now?
So, although that was really geared for slightly younger children, but I think it makes the point that actually children who abuse, sometimes they have got some real barriers to them explaining and disclosing that they're being abused. So it becomes even more important on us as professionals and all staff working in school to have eyes and be looking and alert to the signs and anything that might be of concern to us, so that we can deal with it. Also, other reasons. Why else might we not sort of act on some information because we think we might be wrong, or we worry that we might make the situation worse, or that might have repercussions for me or the child, or hang on a minute, it's not my job, that's surely just DSL's job, or I don't know what to do to help, or what do I know, I might be wrong, or I know the family really, really well, and that I don't want my relationship to be impacted on that, or I've only just got to school, I don't really want to make a bad impression at Reeds, or well, actually nobody's going to take me seriously and nobody's going to listen to me. No, that can't be happening. Or what about, actually, no, let's forget about the child. We forget to think putting the child at the centre of this. Or, no, this is Reeds. That doesn't happen. It couldn't happen to that family. They're so lovely. Or, actually, is that my job to do that? I'm not sure if it's my responsibility. Or perhaps, no, I'm going to assume, no, it'd be fine. If I just leave it, it'll all blow over. It'll be fine. So those are some very real things, and I suspect some of those might resonate with you as you look at those. Now, if a child does make a disclosure, what to do? Because it's concerning when it happens, it's worrying. Do have a look around the outside there. You can see some things, and in the inside, you can perhaps see something that some of you will recognise, and some of you go, yes, I know exactly where my child protection card is, and it tells me on the front, what should I do? And I'm just going to come out and go back into this one, and there we are, there's the card on the back of it, what I shouldn't do. So do have a look at those, pause and think how you're going to do. Taking down a disclosure or child making a disclosure is really important that we get it right. And importantly, at the bottom here, it's not your responsibility to decide if the allegation is true or not. So, and it's not my decision. If it reaches our threshold to refer it upwards, we will. It's up to other people, social services, the police, to investigate and really get there. All we can do is just be alert and refer as best we can. Now, if you're thinking, oh, where is my one of those cards? Don't worry, because you can go and have a look. If you go into the staff common room, you go into My Pigeonhole, have a look in, feel free to just go in there. You can see at the back there, there's a pile of them. Go and help yourself to one. And put it with your phone or in your wallet or on your desk or something where you know it will be to hand should you need it. If you'd find it easier to have it translated into Korean or even into Polish, come to see me, because we have got some of those as well. Now, how are you then going to report a concern? Now, clearly come and speak maybe to myself or to one of the safeguarding team. That's going to be good. We may well then ask you to report it on My Concern. And actually, all concerns, even if you can't come and speak to us, just log a concern. So Google My Concern, you log in with your email address and your password. And if you're not sure about what that is, come and see me. We can get that sorted out for you, no problems. And then when you've logged in, you'll come up with a screen here, and you click on the Report a Concern, and it just takes you through a process, very, very quick process. And even you can report a concern if something's happened during the day and you've been so busy, and then you get home in the evening. It's web-based, so you can just report it, and you can report it at a different time, and then it comes through, and then we can start dealing with it. We can add all the relevant people that need to know what's happening to that concern, and we'll just take it from there. So please do use My Concern, and a huge thank you to the many, many of you who already use My Concern. It really is helpful. Again, why might children not report being abused? And you can see lots of reasons here. They might not be believed, they're embarrassed, they don't know how to articulate it, they're worried about, they're going to make things worse. Some of them might even think it's their own fault. And some of them might be scared, some of them might love the person that's doing the abusing, or some of them might not actually understand that they are being abused, and sometimes they don't know who to tell. And what usually happens is they could make a disclosure to anyone. It could be anyone. So whether you're working in the kitchens or whether in the grounds or anywhere around the school, it might not be in your tutor group or something like that. A child is going to choose somebody, and they're going to think carefully, and in their own way they will come there. So it's really important that we all know what to do if a disclosure is made to us. Now, generally speaking, for all of us, we've got to have these 4 key steps. So to be alert, be aware of potential concerns and concerning behaviour. Question behaviours at the school, question behaviours whether that's right. Question behaviours with pupils. And if you're concerned, certainly ask for help. And then we can decide whether we're going to refer. Now, it is important that we don't need to go through that in a linear step. If there is a bit of behaviour that really concerns you, we might make a referral straight away. So any one of those, but it's just all 4 of those coming together, I think, is quite important, because it really is important that one piece of information that you might bring to our attention and we might share that information, that might be part of a much bigger picture. Now, at a Reads level, you might share something on my concern, and yet there might be all sorts of other things going on in that child's life, and it all comes together to give us a better, bigger picture. On a slightly bigger level, we might refer something to social services, and actually they're aware that maybe the police are involved with the family, or they might be aware that there's been a referral from the GP, and so therefore social services can then make that bigger picture. There's one common thread through serious case reviews when things have gone wrong and a child, the worst case scenario, has died. The one common theme comes on that people did not share information. So I really cannot stress, it really, really is important to share your concerns. Now, what to do if you've got a concern? As I say, if you're unsure, just log it on My Concern, or come and share your concerns. Come and speak to one of the safeguarding team. We will advise you. We'll always give you time. We'll advise you on what to do. Hopefully you now know about what to do at the school, and so you can check on our policy if you want to go there. And also you could make a referral to social services, and it used to be called MASH. It's now the Single Point of Access, sometimes referred to as SPAR, so the CSPAR, Children's Single Point of Access, CSPAR. So you can make a referral yourself. We would advise, if you're thinking of doing that, come and let us know, and it's usually better. We can guide you through the process. We can even do it for you. So do come and talk to us. And there's some details. That's the contacts. All those contacts are up on the common notice board. They're in the safeguarding policy as well. So do have a look if you want to make any of those referrals. So there we are. I'll turn you back round. I think I've managed to do that in about 29 or about 30 minutes. So hopefully less than an hour, and you haven't been sat there. You could have even broken it up into small little chunks if you can't take too much safeguarding training all at once. So I hope it's useful to you. Please, the one thing I would say is there'll be a little questionnaire for you to just say, yes, I've watched the video and I know what to do, and yes, I've sort of I know what to do. So we could do that. We could just so we can record it. Otherwise, I hope it's as sort of we've made it as quick and as time efficient as possible. And that's enough from me on safeguarding for now. If you have any questions, just as ever, just come and talk to us, and we will try and help. But thank you very much for watching.